What's up, everybody? We are live on the YouTube again for today's episode of Cybersecurity News Today with Brian from Exact IT and Cybersecurity. Today is April 2nd, 2025. Thank you for joining. Sorry about the audio there. We are live on the chat, so if you want to engage with us in the chat, we'd be more than happy to engage with you there. Also, drop the comments down below. Welcome to today's episode of Cybersecurity News Today, April 2nd, 2025 edition. As I mentioned, I'm Brian Horning with Exact Cybersecurity and IT. We've got an action-packed show for you today covering the latest and most jaw-dropping developments in cybersecurity, things that I found interesting in the news, and I'll give you my reaction and insight and commentary on. We're going to talk about things like ransomware groups wreaking havoc to North Korean hackers infiltrating unsuspecting companies as IT workers. These are all various threats that are coming your way here in 2025. We're breaking it all down for you. Plus, we're going to dive into a sneaky IRS scan in our threat intelligence segment using just your phone and just in time for tax season. So whether you're an IT pro or a business leader, this is the cybersecurity update for you, and you can't afford to miss it. And on our agenda, we're going to talk about today Trump's cyber rollbacks and how that's impacting states and what that means. We're going to talk about why MSPs are constantly under attack by cyber criminals. We're going to talk about an update to the Schneider Electric Data Leak that I found interesting, being the time frame that everything occurred there. So you want to stay tuned to that. We have a military contractor who is dealing with a breach and is in the crosshairs of cyber criminals that we want to get you in tune to. And then in our threat intel report, our team has put together 4 interesting alerts that you need to be aware of. One involves quishing or using QR codes to attack your users, your Microsoft users more specifically. We're going to get into that IRS phone scam that I mentioned. We're going to talk about these North Koreans who are exploiting IT companies across the globe by accepting jobs at their organizations. And we're going to talk about a multi-stage attack analysis using Vishing, quick assist abuse, and stealthy backdoors. So as I mentioned, stay tuned as we dive into these stories. The chat is open and probably being monitored, I hope. The comment section is also open if you're watching this on the recording and not on the live stream. And feel free to share your thoughts there in the comment section as well. Remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel, share us out if you're so inclined to your audience and friends and family. And we'll get going here with the latest and greatest. Let me just flip over here, switch screens a second. Trump's cyber rollback exposes states to ransomware attacks. Now, why would President Trump do this to the states? Why would he want to put the onus of dealing with cyber attacks on local governments? As we know, local governments are a prime favorite for cyber criminals, and a lot of times those local governments like to roll or go over to the federal government and ask them for assistance when it comes to their cyber attacks. And the Trump administration has come out and basically said that we're no longer going to participate in helping you deal with the aftermath of the cyber attack. So imagine the federal government handing states a cybersecurity grenade without the pin. That's essentially what's happening according to this report, at least the angle in this article that I have up on the screen from bankinfosecurity.com. The Trump administration has shifted critical infrastructure defense duties to the cash-strapped states, leaving them scrambling to fight ransomware gangs with duct tape and wishful thinking. Local governments now face a cyber Hunger Games where attackers exploit outdated systems and underfunded IT teams, and the odds are not in the state's favor here, folks. Federal states come running to the federal government screaming for help, either with dealing with these cyber thugs, these cyber criminals, or getting help after the fact. And I think that that's the problem. Ransomware attacks on local governments have skyrocketed 74% in 2024, with attackers demanding an average of $500,000 to unlock systems. And that's crazy. And a lot of times, these municipal governments, these state governments are ill prepared and don't have money in the budget to deal with this. So the first thing they do is run to FEMA and the federal government and or DHS and CISTA to get help with paying these ransoms and to get help with dealing with the recovery from these ransomware attacks and these other types of data breaches. So it's interesting because the Trump administration isn't necessarily abandoning the states. They are willing to help them from a cybersecurity perspective, but they just want to help them on the front side of the attack. They want to help them with prevention and detection. They don't want to help them with response and recovery, which is typically where the federal government comes in and helps these states. So at the end of the day, your tax dollars are still going to go towards dealing with this problem. But it seems to be the Trump administration, quite frankly, I don't disagree with the approach. Prevention and detection is where the money needs to be spent, and it's not being spent there. That's why these municipal governments, state, local governments, court systems, K through 12 schools, and even colleges are getting attacked at unprecedented rates compared to other industries. And the Trump administration is saying, hey, why don't we help them shore up their defenses rather than give them money to deal with the attackers, and also pay cyber criminals, usually pay them an extortion fee for the ransomware event or for the extortion event that occurred as part of the attack. So I like the strategy personally. Where do you fall on this? Do you think the federal government should be helping out at all? Should they be helping out what we call on the prevention and detection side of things, or left of boom? Or should they be actually helping out only when bad things happen on the right of boom or from the data breach or ransomware event? So we will learn more we'll see what happens as this plays out. Again, this is early on. It's a definite shift from the previous administration and how they decided to tackle the problem. But essentially, states and local governments are no longer going to get help from the federal government if they get attacked. However, there will be a shift in the resources to the prevention side of things. So MSPs, you are a massive target for cyber criminals. You're looked at as the ultimate hack one, breach all kind of buffet for cyber criminals. And these IT superheroes, as they're known as in the business world at times, who manage networks for, at times dozens, if not hundreds of clients with thousands of computers and endpoints at their disposal. MSPs a lot of times can be this single weak link in a company's cyber defenses. Like a delayed software patch, these things can turn into a ransomware's favorite punching bag if they aren't doing things correctly. And you know what? Hackers know this. They're exploiting MSPs faster than you can say our computer's down. So what do we do about this? What's the problem? So MSPs, number one, they need to step up their game. Cyber criminals strike usually within 48 hours of a vulnerability being discovered. And we know that MSPs, depending on their size, are having a tough time keeping up with patching schedules and just keeping systems up to date, if at all. While most businesses take around 150 days to patch, the numbers aren't in our favor right now based on that. So it's an interesting quandary where these MSPs end up. There's a lot of chatter out there in the communities that I'm involved in about MSPs and their lack of doing things at a high level. MSPs are still kind of on their own for doing things at a high standard. It's an unregulated industry and nobody's making them do this stuff. So if an MSP is out there proactively getting certifications, doing things like getting the CompTIA or GTIA trust mark, or getting some kind of recognized framework certification, they're doing more than most MSPs that I'm aware of out there. And that's where the industry needs to be and where it needs to go. But unfortunately, we have a lot of clients, or we have a lot of industries out there that work with MSPs, that hire MSPs to run their IT, who think their MSP is doing everything that they should, without even having a conversation with them about what they're actually doing. One of the most searched for terms on Google Trends is, what does my MSP actually do, or how do I find out what my IT actually does? There's a lot of people out there running companies who have no clue what their own internal IT department does for them, especially when it comes to cybersecurity and compliance, or what their MSP does. And they refuse to have the conversation. So there's a lot of what I call mutual mystification going on out there, where the MSP goes humming along thinking that they're doing a great job for their client, and the client thinks that the MSP is protecting them from every threat known to man. And neither of those things are usually true. And unfortunately, it takes an unfortunate event for that to reveal itself. So get proactive. Talk to your MSP about what they're doing for you, and MSPs, be proactive about what you're doing for your clients, and don't hide behind things and hope they just don't notice that you're not doing these things while you still collect a check from them. We need MSPs across the land to step up their game and do a better job, especially when it comes to compliance and cybersecurity, because MSPs are just not doing a great job at this point, and it's putting a lot of companies at risk. Especially, I think about the DoD world that's going to have to deal with CMMC very soon, and I think a lot of DoD contractors are going to find it hard to pass their CMMC certification because of what their MSP is doing. And unfortunately, they're not going to take the proper steps to check that before they go for their audit. And there's going to be a lot of companies that learn a hard lesson by failing an audit about what their MSP is really doing in their business. And we see this across the board with all compliance that's out there. A lot of companies discover that their IT team or their MSP just can't handle the level of security or the level of that's required in their business, and their team or their MSP just isn't big enough or well equipped enough to handle it. So that's the situation there with MSPs. They remain a number one target for ransomware criminals. And it will be an ever-evolving story, as I believe companies learn over the next months and years here, that not all MSPs are created equal, and they are not able to do things, or they're not handling things the way that a lot of companies think they are or wish they would be. If you have any questions about that, drop it in the chat. I'd be more than happy to go into more detail about some of the things that we have come across in our time at Exact Cybersecurity, evaluating companies that use MSPs. But that's the deal. MSPs are a target, and quite frankly, from where I sit, you need to do better. So here we go. Moving right along. Alleged Schneider Electric Data Leak post ransomware summary. And Hellcat ransomware gang said to Schneider Electric, pay up or we'll leak your secrets. And Schneider said, nah, we're not going to pay up. And now 44 gigabytes of Schneider's data, including emails and application details, are floating around the dark web. It's like a digital yard sale here, folks, except everything's free and your reputation is now ruined. And we see this all the time with companies who tell cyber criminals, like, yeah, you stole our data, but we're not going to pay you to not release it. And we see it over and over. They put an auction out on the dark web. They might get a buyer to buy some of it or none of it, and then they just go and release it to everybody for free anyway. So companies, cyber defenders, you need to prepare for these data leaks. role play your breach scenarios with your management teams and take them through these situations where, your legal team, your operations team, your management team understands what is happening with your data when a cyber event happens, and let them know what could happen if they decide not to pay up. Paint a picture for them that, hey, we decided not to pay, and 2 weeks, a month later, all of the information appeared on the dark web. And what does that mean? Well, if you're a smart cyber defender, you're going to be advising your clients that their situation is going to look like this. You're probably going to have to deal with class action lawsuits because lawyers are also out on the dark web, researching the dark web with their teams to see whose data ended up on the dark web. And sure enough, there's hundreds of lawyers now that have created blogs that go out there and say like, hey, so-and-so company was breached and all of that information is out on the dark web. Oh, and by the way, if you want help or you want to go after this company, contact our office. This is a very common way for lawyers to market their services and start things like class action lawsuits against companies. And we see that all the time. Not only is the data out there and are now your customers and clients mad at you, and now your reputation is ruined and people aren't going to want to do business with you, you're also going to get your name dragged through the mud when the class action lawsuit actually gets filed, and then you're in the news and your company's name is public, and that information just gets out there quicker and quicker. And you're thinking, oh, we're not going to pay the ransom. We're just going to hopefully bury this thing and nothing bad happens. Well, ask other companies who decided not to pay the ransom, and then this information was released on the dark web for free, and see how that went for them. Most of them dealt with class action lawsuits and companies going after them, or people going after them as a result. I just heard that Mr. Cooper the other day, they were a big mortgage processor. A lot of people haven't heard of Mr. Cooper, but if you bought a house, more than likely Mr. Cooper handled your data along the way in the transaction. Well, they just sold their company the other day after they had a cyber attack about a year ago, and they tried to muddle through it, but they couldn't deal with all the aftermath of class action lawsuits and things that come along with these types of events. So be sure to make sure that you're telling your customers, like, this is what it's going to look like on the back end of this. As cyber defenders, your customers don't understand what a cyber attack looks like. And this is a good example that, it's really bad news. This was a November ransomware incident, and this group just posted this stuff recently. So they gave this organization time. They probably tried to negotiate with them, and they just decided, nope, we're not going to do it. And 65%, here's a fun fact for you, 65% of ransomware gangs now publicly shame victims who refuse to pay. So even if you don't get ransom, there's no mercy here. They're going to take it out on you in some way. And if they steal your data and you think, we're just not going to pay you because we're getting our data back through backups and we're able to get back up and running, you should be aware of what happens on the other side. I remember Lehigh Valley Health Network, their class action lawsuit ended up in a $65 million settlement, which was way, way cheaper than what they would have paid if they paid the cyber criminals not to release the medical records on the dark web. So that's an update for you on the Schneider breach that happened back in November. And here's another one. Actually, this is, let me switch up here. I'm going to switch up to this one. National Presto Industries claimed to be compromised by Interlock ransomware gang. The Interlock gang raided National Presto Industries. Interesting company. They're makers of waffle irons and ammunition, but they also have defense contracts. It's a Wisconsin-based company that I think I have here. Give me 1 second to pull that up. Wisconsin-based company that has a houseware and small appliance segment, a defense segment where they manufacture ammunition and ordnance products and energetic devices for U.S. Department of Defense and contractors, including 44 millimeter ammunition, precision mechanical, mechanical products, and medium caliber cartridge cases. They also focus on safety products as well. And they're a pretty nice sized company. Revenues over 300 million, close to 400 million, growing at about 20%. And this company is a defense company that is dealing with a cyber attack, unfortunately. And the details here are quickly that the Interlock gang stole 3 million files. And basically, this national MPI, National Presto Industries, shrugged it off, claiming minimal impact. But when a military contractor gets hacked, it's less than oops, folks. And it's no more like, oh no, CMMC is here. You can't treat this stuff like this anymore. So, you have to be really smart about what you're doing and understand what you're up against with your compliance. No longer is this stuff going to be okay. Defense sector ransomware attacks jumped 38% last year, and hackers love a good military secret or getting into military systems for the purpose of deploying ransomware. But a lot of these military companies, once they get in, there's a whole network of cyber criminals here that are working together. They might not necessarily want to deploy ransomware if they get into this company's network. It's one of those things where they look around and they say, what do we have here? And maybe they can sell access to this network for a higher price tag to a company that wants to, conduct espionage activities over a cyber criminal group that wants to deploy ransomware. These things are all on the table for businesses today, and they have to be aware of that. That's why the DoD is rolling out CMMC and taking this stuff more seriously, because quite frankly, they're tired of the FBI coming back to them and telling them, hey, we just took down this terrorist group or that terrorist group. And guess what? This company's files were all over this group's servers and computers when we took them down. That's how the DoD knows that the DIB is not doing a good job with this stuff, because they're finding your data all over the internet when they take down these cyber criminal gangs and terrorist groups around the world. So very interesting scenario. This group is definitely hit by Interlock. They're showing up on their dark web leak site. So it's only a matter of time before we learn more. But again, it's just another example of people being aware that the defense industry is not doing a great job here, and we need to do a better job. So moving right along, QR code phishing, or otherwise known as quishing, steals Microsoft login. So QR codes are now the Trojan horses of phishing. It's kind of like a new way in, right? And we're seeing these QR code scams pop up all over the place, from stickers on QR codes that are on like menus. When you go into a restaurant, somebody can put a sticker over top of the QR code. Instead of going to the restaurant website, they're going to some website that they created that does who knows what to your device, or tries to steal some kind of information. But scammers are slipping malicious QR codes into fake employee handbooks or invoice updates. So instead of getting people to click on things, maybe they'll fall for pulling out their phone and scanning it. And then if they can exploit a vulnerability on a device like an Android device or an Apple device, poof, they got you. So these things look like this. You hit the QR code, you're on a fake login page, or you're downloading a what looks like a Apple Store or Google Play Store app. And the next thing you know, you're downloading malware, or you're handing over your credentials on these fake login pages. It's kind of like a magic trick, except you're the rabbit and you're the one getting stuffed into the hat. These QR codes, you need to make sure that you're banning them, right? Have your email filtering software in tune to these QR codes, and don't allow them to get through your email filters. Pull them out. If a PDF file has a QR code embedded in it, don't allow the PDF file to come through. If they're embedding images with QR codes in them into the emails themselves, be smart. Make sure that you are not allowing them through, so it's even a choice for your users. But teach your users, educate them in your security awareness training. Make sure you're keeping it up to date. A lot of these tools and these services that are out there today that teach that are security awareness training programs like KnowBe4, they don't enter or they don't get this information updated quick enough for it to be relevant to your users. Yeah, it's great they update them every once in a while, but if this scam is going on right now, wouldn't you want to get that information out to your users as soon as possible? So we always recommend a hybrid approach when it comes to security and awareness training. Yes, you can use tools like KnowBe4, but it's always good to supplement that with more relevant and up-to-date information to augment the training that you're getting from kind of like those canned systems. So make sure you're teaching them about these scams, as we're calling them. Train them to spot shady QR codes, or don't use QR codes at all and tell them not to scan them at all, but make sure that they're aware. You can go into a restaurant, a store, they can be posted on the door of a business you frequent, and you think it's for that business, and it's really put there by some kind of criminal. Did you know that 76% of mobile phishing scams now use SMS delivered QR codes? So your phone's not safe anymore. They're coming after it, and they're figuring out ways to use these QR codes to bypass traditional spam filters that are out there, because they're looking for malicious links. And when these don't have links embedded in them, and it's just a picture that your phone is then programmed to take a picture of and then take you to that link that's embedded in the image, it's a lot harder for these filters to find them. But there are ways that you can set up the filters so that these QR codes don't even come through in the first place. So it's a good idea. Make sure as a cyber defender, you're looking at this stuff, you're setting it up, and you're doing something about these QR codes, because this is growing, folks. You're going to see this more. You're going to think back in 6 months, you're going to remember when I talked about this in this video. If you were watching this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's what that guy was talking about. Because this stuff I'm talking about in this video and I'm teaching you today, while it might not be prevalent right now, it's going to be prevalent in the next 3 to 6 months. So let's get into a little bit with our threat intel report here, folks. Let me just see if I can find, boom, yep, here's the one. And it's kind of related. The IRS saying your phone is the #1 target in a new wave of IRS scans, McAfee found out. So the IRS isn't texting you, folks. Scammers are. McAfee found a tidal wave of fake tax refund SMS scams with malicious links, and this has been going on this year pretty heavily in the tax year for 2025. One click, and you send your social and your social security number becomes the hacker's confetti. The real IRS still uses snail mail, folks, and they're definitely not sending you text messages, phone calls, and be aware of any weird stuff like weird URLs or emojis. Like we've seen some of these texts that have emojis in them. The IRS is not using emojis, folks. So let's be smart about this. Let's not get scammed, but people are falling for this scam left and right. There's tools built into a lot of phones, like in T-Mobile, they have a scam shield. AT&T has a protection shield. You can download third-party tools like Bitdefender, and they all have these technologies that look for and block phishing domains in text messages and other messages that come through your phone, like Facebook and Instagram. And make sure you verify and don't trust anything. Don't believe a phone call or text message that comes your way. It says that they're from the IRS. Go to irs.gov directly. Don't click on links. Type these things into your browser. That's the smartest way to do it. Don't do a Google search for IRS and then click on the first link you see. Just type in irs.gov. You'll go right to their main homepage, and you'll probably get to whatever you need, although very confusing because it's a government website. I get it. But you'll get to where you need from there. Phishing texts have spiked 200% this tax season. So nobody's phone is safe. Be aware that this is happening. And we also have to remember, we are on the heels of a IRS Treasury Department data breach by Chinese hackers. at the end of 2024. So they have a lot of people's information to pull off these attacks. And I guarantee you that contributed to this 200% spike this tax season. So another story out of our threat report, which is an interesting one. I've covered this one before. I've talked about it before. And this is North Korean IT workers infiltrating Europe. Well, North Korean IT workers have been at it for a while now, trying to infiltrate IT companies as either freelance IT people or employees of the company. North Korea's army of freelance IT spies is now targeting Europe. These operatives pose as remote developers on Upwork, so be careful hiring people on Upwork as anyone who works as a developer or an IT, and then they sneak into your company to steal data or plant ransomware. We've seen this happen plenty of times, right? Unfortunately, this leaves a lot of executives and a lot of people crying when they find out that their staff hired somebody off Upwork and it caused a major problem like this. So just like you would employees, you need to vet your freelancers. You need to do background checks on them, use ID verification tools like Clear and Onfido. You make sure you know who these people are and they are who they say they are, and even go a step further to verify where they live and if they actually own property in the US. I mean, you are an IT company. If you're doing IT and people are putting trust in you, at least having a hand in their security, whether you do cybersecurity for them or not, you're still touching their IT systems. And with that comes some responsibility around security and making sure that the people that you are employing and the people you're putting in place to do the work for your client are not going to cause a problem because they're actually a spy working for North Korea. Bring your own disaster is what they're calling this, BYOD. And make sure you're restricting all your devices to non-critical systems, because a lot of these North Korean freelancers are taking advantage of people all different kinds of way, including, infiltrating the information of employees on their personal devices. It's pretty wild what these guys are up to once they get inside companies. They're not just trying to go after the company, they're also trying to infiltrate and steal information from employees. I believe that's because identity fraud and North Korea go hand in hand, and that's one of the ways their economy thrives is by stealing the identities of Americans and using their identity to take things out, will take loans out and things in their name. So 70% of North Korean IT freelancers use fake LinkedIn profiles. They set up a fake LinkedIn profile to make themselves look legit. So when people go on Upwork and they decide to, do a little bit of research to dig in to find out this person's real, they come up with a LinkedIn profile, and that's all they need to decide that this person's legit and they should come work for us. And I got to tell you, that's a bad background check. Make sure you're doing legitimate background checks by reputable companies that can verify these individuals and raise any red flags like, hey, they don't even live in America, or they don't live in the country that they say that they're living or working currently in. So pay attention to this stuff, folks. Make sure you know who you're hiring. It is a crazy job market out there, and people tend to hire quickly, but you don't want to hire too quickly to where you're dealing with these types of events with these criminals inside of your network because you hired them to be there. So this one's an interesting one. There's a multi-stage attack happening, and this cyber defense group called Ontinue, and I'm not sure if I have the right article up. Give me 1 second. I think I do, but let me double check. Apologize. Yes, I think this is the right one. Yep. So this is essentially an attack that, is really kind of crazy in a way. It has a lot of twists here, and I'm going to try to stay with me here. But hackers are using AI voice clones to trick victims via Teams. Then they abuse Microsoft's Quick Assist to hijack systems, which is what we've seen before. But the twist here, the twist here is the use of AI voice to clone and trick victims, and that's to build trust. We've seen messages come in via Teams, and quickly it seems like organizations have adapted to that scam by putting different defenses in place. But when this scam first started, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was just messages coming in on Teams from external places. And now it seems that they've added a layer of voice to kind of, trick users into the authenticity of maybe who's contacting them. So not only did they do that with the AI voice and then use Quick Assist to get into your system, then they're hiding malware into these signed binaries to avoid detection, meaning like they expect you to, once they get in there, to have EDR tools and different cybersecurity tools in place. So they're using a sophisticated method of signed binaries to exploit the systems. And they're saying, hey, I'm your IT support guy, and they may have been able to clone your IT support guy's voice if you work with somebody on a regular basis. So your employees are expecting to hear, the voice of Joe, and they don't hear that, so they're immediately going to be suspicious. So these cyber criminals are one step ahead. They're cloning the voice of Joe, and now they're getting the buy-in of the user to allow the Joe to remote in, even though it might be not his normal way of remoting in, which should be a red flag. A lot of times those red flags don't get caught by your average user. So you want to make sure that you take care of things so users can't do things like deploy Quick Assist. One easy way to make sure that cyber defenders can prevent that is just disable Quick Assist from the system. No user should really need to deploy that themselves, and your IT team should have its own way of remoting in and supporting your users. And then just be aware of these living off the land binaries and exploits that cyber criminals like to use on tools like Word and Excel and Outlook, and monitor these tools for running scripts under PowerShell or command prompt, or better yet, do what we do and just disable PowerShell and command prompt from being able to even be run on a system that's logged into by a standard user. Only administrators should be able to run those tools, and make sure you're disabling them for everybody else, right? And then use them when you need to use them for administrative purposes, and don't leave them sitting out there waiting to be used by some cyber criminal who comes along and decides they want to live off your land and exploit your company. These are all smart ways that cyber defenders can avoid cyber criminals from using the tools that are built into Windows. AI voice scams have a 95% success rate, folks. So be aware that this newer way of scamming your employees, scamming your users is very successful, mainly because we're not training our users on the threat, and they're unaware that this technology can be used to clone somebody in the IT department or at the MSP's voice. Simple phone call to that person, 5-second phone call can do what I'm talking about here. And it's very successful, 95% success rate at tricking victims. So make sure you know who's calling you, and make sure you have a proper process, because this stuff is real. And if your users aren't trained on what they can expect from a IT support call and how it should go down, they're never going to be able to flag these things as a problem. So, and then another issue around from our threat hunting team that we need to discuss here, and this is our final topic for today, is these sophisticated Vishing and Node.js backdoor attacks. And that's actually what I have up on the screen. The previous article I could not locate in the millions of tabs that I have open to share it up on the screen, so not a big deal. But here's the deal. Hackers are combining voice phishing or vishing with a Node.js backdoor to create the ultimate cyber ninja attack. They're socially engineered victims into running a malicious script, and then they're worked into the system for weeks. It's like letting a burglar in and letting them walk around your house for weeks at a time, and then they kind of they're there. They're doing things to your system, meaning like they're rearranging the furniture in your house and stealing your Wi-Fi password. You know, you don't want to let people in like this. And these vishing and these voice scams that are coming through can have links and attachments that users aren't necessarily prepared for, nor do the devices have the security in place to deal with them. And hackers are getting ahead of this at a very scary pace. Cyber defenders need to be aware of this and need to do a better job of protecting these personal devices and these phones and making users aware of the threats that can come through a phone. Make sure you're blocking messages from unknown people through SMS and through Teams. We see Teams messages being a favorite for these kinds of vishing voice attacks because defenses are down around them and people don't know how and why they got through their company's Teams, and they kind of trust it because it's sitting there in Teams versus sitting there in their SMS where maybe they're used to or they've seen scam texts before. People aren't familiar with these scam Teams messages, so you need to make people aware of it so they don't fall victim to it. And then deploying a SOC or an EDR/XDR solution can catch these stealthy attackers hiding in plain sight. When they're moving around your phone, when they're rearranging the furniture, as I described, or they might be trying to get onto your Wi-Fi. These are things that a SOC team, that a 24/7 SOC team can catch, and that's how you catch them. When they try to evade your security tools, your CrowdStrike, your SentinelOne, the favorite tools that everybody, if you're using Norton, McAfee, these are all tools. They do a pretty good job of blocking things and alerting things if you have them set up correctly. But there's also a whole lot of other things that aren't seen that are going on behind the scenes that a SOC team can analyze as well and should analyze as part of your security stack. And then they can respond and react accordingly based on what they're seeing. And this is a really smart strategy for dealing with these kind of Node.js backdoor type of attacks that cyber criminals have gotten so good at hiding on most systems today. It's why cyber criminals are able to stay in systems for more than 6 months at a time undetected, because we don't have enough companies buying into the fact that they need a security and operations team monitoring their systems 24/7. So if you want to be one of the ransomware victims that has to pay out the average of $3 million in 2025, don't do what I'm saying. Don't pay attention to any of this, and just keep moving on with your life like there's nothing going on. But if you want to heed these warnings, do it. I'm giving you a lot of good advice on these videos to show you how you can deal with all these different things that come up every day. And again, we're going to do this every day to point out all the different complexities and how this stuff changes on a daily basis and how quick it moves. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT problem. It's a business survival skill at this point in 2025. Whether it's QR codes, voice clones, rogue freelancers trying to infiltrate your company through Upwork jobs, attackers are innovating faster than a Silicon Valley startup. Stay paranoid, stay prepared, and never let your guard down. If you need more insight or advice on any of this stuff, hit me up. I'm in the chat. I'm in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Stay safe out there.